Moscow, August 20, 2026. A Russian aerospace forces Su-35 fighter crossed into Ukrainian-controlled airspace over the Sumy region, flying over the town of Uhroidy, and launched a Kh-5969 guided missile towards Sumy City before returning safely to Russian-controlled airspace in Kursk. The reported sortie is unusual because Russian fourth-generation fighters have consistently avoided penetrating Ukrainian airspace, instead relying heavily on missiles and glide bombs to engage targets at range weapons. If confirmed, it would represent a notable departure from the operating patterns that have characterized much of the war, and indicate a potential shift in doctrine in response to a weakening of adversary air defenses. The Su-35 is particularly well suited to probing hostile defenses. The aircraft combines one of the world's largest, most powerful primary radars, two secondary L-band AESA radars, and modern electronic warfare pods to provide a high degree of survivability through jamming. The aircraft's single pilot, and the large numbers in service and in production, make the use of the aircraft for such missions a lower risk than using a twin-seat Su-30 SM-2 or a scarce Su-57 stealth fighter. The Su-57 is the only fighter type known to have previously been deployed for significant operations close to hostile air defenses, reflecting its much higher degree of survivability than other Russian tactical combat jets. The reported flight over Uhroidy would have placed the Su-35 substantially closer to Ukrainian air defense systems than is normally necessary for a strike mission. A likely explanation is that Russia was deliberately testing Ukraine's air defense response. A fighter penetrating a relatively limited distance across the border could provide Russian forces with information about radar coverage, reaction times, and the availability of surface-to-air missile batteries. Even if the aircraft did not intend to conduct a prolonged operation over Ukrainian territory, the mission could reveal whether Ukrainian commanders were capable of rapidly engaging a fast-moving target. The aircraft may have exploited a temporary gap in radar or missile coverage. Due to the rapid depletion of its S-300 air defense arsenal inherited from the Soviet Union, Ukraine's US-supplied MIM-104 Patriot air defense systems and their PAC-2 and PAC-3 interceptors have become the most important components of its long-range air defense network. These systems are capable of engaging aircraft and missiles at considerable distances, but their interceptors are expensive and increasingly difficult to replace. A number of analysts have interpreted the Su-35's ability to launch penetration strikes as a direct result of the effective cutting off of supplies of interceptors for Patriot systems to Ukraine, which compounds the destruction of multiple systems in Russian strikes. If Russia believes Ukrainian interceptor stocks have become sufficiently depleted, it could become more willing to accept greater risks with tactical aviation. The depletion or redistribution of Patriot batteries could create temporary gaps, particularly across Ukraine's enormous territory. Russia could then attempt to identify and exploit those gaps rather than assuming that Ukrainian airspace is uniformly defended. The latest development may thus signal a changing balance between Russian tactical aviation and Ukrainian air defense. The Sumy region is particularly sensitive because of its proximity to Russia's Kursk region. Russian aircraft operating from bases and airspace in western Russia can reach the area relatively quickly, while Russian forces also possess extensive sensor coverage near the border. This geography potentially provides Russian aviation with opportunities to conduct short-duration penetrations that would be much more difficult deeper inside Ukraine. For Ukraine, defending Sumy presents a difficult resource allocation problem. Creating a continuous long-range air defense umbrella across the entire northeastern border would require substantial numbers of launchers, radars, and interceptor missiles. Russia can potentially exploit the resulting gaps by varying its routes, launch points, and attack profiles. Earlier, a Russian Su-35 long-range air superiority fighter engaged a Ukrainian MiG-29 over the Donetsk region on August 18, as the targeted aircraft was conducting a strike mission against Russian positions around Konstantinivka using guided glide bombs. The Su-35 was operating near Horlivka, while the Ukrainian MiG-29 was launching bombs from an area west of Kramatorsk. The Russian fighter reportedly shot down the target using either an active radar-guided missile, either the R-37M or the R-77, The engagement demonstrates the continued importance of long-range air-to-air combat over the Ukrainian battlefield, particularly as both sides increasingly rely on aircraft operating from outside the most heavily defended areas. Although the Su-35 has long suffered significant disadvantages compared to modern US and Chinese fighter types due to the limitations of its R-77-1 air-to-air missile, the integration of the R-37M from around 2022, followed by the R-77M from 2025, has transformed its combat potential. The missile has an estimated range of close to 200 kilometers, and is reported to use an AESA radar in its homing head for greater immunity to jamming and a longer target lock-on range. It is also reported to use active phased array antenna technology to provide the missile with a fuller and wider angle picture of its target, making it far more difficult to evade, as well as a new dual-pulse rocket motor. The missile has largely bridged the gap in performance with foreign rivals, allowing the Su-35 to engage Ukrainian fighters much more effectively at medium and long ranges. The latest engagement follows the shoot-down of a Ukrainian Air Force MiG-29 in Poltava region on June 27 by a Su-35, closely coinciding with the destruction of two further MiG-29s on the ground in drone strikes. The Su-35 reportedly shot the fighter down using an R-37M long-range air-to-air missile at a range of approximately 190 kilometers, which may represent the longest successful air-to-air kill ever recorded in combat. The Su-35S appeared to have been operating well inside Russian-controlled airspace, which remains standard practice for Russian fighters to avoid being targeted by Ukraine's ground-based air defenses. MiG-29s have suffered heavy losses in air-to-air combat while achieving no confirmed kills against Russian fighters. A particularly intense 10 days of air battles in October 2023 is reported to have seen 17 MiG-29s shot down in air-to-air engagements with Russian fighters. The MiG-29's much heavier and more capable counterpart, the Su-27, has similarly suffered overwhelming losses when engaging modern Russian fighter types, reflecting a technological gap of close to 2 decades that factors against the Soviet-era jets. Despite the MiG-29's limitations, in the early weeks of the war, Ukrainian government and Western media sources widely reported that a MiG-29 piloted by a local ace, named the Ghost of Kiev, gained a tremendous number of kills against Russian fighters, although it was later widely confirmed that these reports had been false and were propagated to boost morale.